cracking matchup at featherweight down in Australia. We have Phar Jenkins taking on Chepe Mariscal. This is a big time fight.
Oh, yeah.
Down at featherweight, a possible fight of the night between a guy who's kicked multiple men's legs apart. That's aggressive. And Jenkins. And for Machine Gun Chepe Mariscal, this is a guy that came in on 10 days notice, replacing Victor Martinez to take on your favorite hammer-fisted standing man, Trevor Peek. And Matt, Chepe Mariscal looked pretty darn good in that fight. Gets unanimous decision. That fight doesn't win fight of the night. Somehow, Ilia Topuria beating the brakes off Josh Emmett. That was a fight of the night. But Chepe Mariscal looked very, very good, and we were definitely impressed by that. A good fighter coming out of gym in Elevation in Colorado in Mariscal. Mariscal, who has fought some of your favorite fighters, beaten some of them.
Insane level of competition.
Lost to some of them. The thing for Mariscal is he's going to give a tough fight to a guy fighting in a bar to a top 15 contender. He fights the same way every single time.
I felt terrible for him when I was watching that Joe Anderson-Brito fight.
And I'm going to make a couple of examples, but his fight against Jose Mariscal, who the nickname in that fight was Chepe. In that fight, you look at the referee, and he stood absolutely no chance. But if your name is Curtis Thunder, you'd think, hey, Curtis, you're going to stand a chance. So what happens? Brito goes out there, and before the fight even starts, they go into the middle, and they're jawing as the ring announcer is announcing Joe Anderson-Brito. He's standing in there trash talking. English is not his first language, and he's absolutely going at it.
That life.
So Mr. Thunder does his thing, splits them up. They start to fight. Joe Anderson rushes in there, and when I watch him fight, it's either, is this guy going to glove tap, or is he going to be like a dick on UFC 4, and are we going spinning wheel kick and Craig gets knocked out? Well, it could be either or, but in that one, they're jawing. Joe Anderson kicks him in the cup. His opponent goes to grab his cup. Mr. Thunder goes, all right, stop. And Joe Anderson goes, bang, bang, and knocks him and wobbles him. And then the fight starts back up. Joe Anderson goes in there, throws bombs, goes body kick, right hook, left hook, knocks him dead. So again, I am very hyped up on Joe Anderson-Brito.
It's a tough performance. You know, and for Mariscal, here's the one thing I will say about him, and let's just give full respect to both these guys. I'm really excited for this fight. I think this could be a fight of the night by the time it's over. I don't think the winner of this is getting into the top 15, though, if I'm being completely honest, because for Mariscal, he has a great right hand. He can throw it from any position, really. He throws it hooks, he throws it straight. You know what the problem is, though? He doesn't set it up all that well, and he will overextend with that one big power shot quite a bit, and that's something I do worry about when he fights guys.
And we've seen Mariscal in the career of one Carlos Hernandez, who looked great last weekend, kind of weave and intertwine, because for Mariscal, 2014 IMMAF gold medalist at the World Championships in the lightweight division. You also had Carlos Hernandez winning a belt there. You also had one Shorty Torres and Amanda Hebos, all of them successful
names
at the 2014 IMMAF World Championships. But for Mariscal, becoming a pro, you go down through it. And again, as I said, he's taken on a very, very high-level competition. Maybe he hasn't beaten everybody, but he loses to Gregor Gillespie. He loses to Bryce Mitchell. He fought Carl Deaton, who's now in the UFC. He beat Pat Sabatini. He beat Yusuf Salal. But then he has losses to Brito, Garcia, and Sean Soriano. If you go back and you watch these fights from Mariscal, his last time out, main event's LFA 153. That was his third LFA main event. In that one, misses weight at featherweight. That's why you see 150 pounds there. But in that one, his opponent beats him up in the first round, and then he rallies in the second round and ends up getting the win. If you watch him fighting Jordan Beltran over with Combate, he gets the win there. Beltran's record a little bit suspect. He beats Luke Faltersack over with Cage Warriors, Cage Warriors 133. They've had some California cards. That was one of those American cards. And in that one, Faltersack lands some good shots, but you end up having Mariscal getting the win. If you watch Mariscal's fight against Sean Soriano and the fight against Faltersack and the fight against Joe Anderson-Brito, I think if you consider it for Mariscal, he's got a magnet in his cup for nut shots.
It must be terrible.
Because in the fight against Sean Soriano, he gets kicked in the twice in the first round. Soriano loses a point. But the biggest problem I have is a red flag in that CFFC fight against Soriano. What does Soriano excel at? The wrestling. What's Sean Soriano not good at? Wrestling. He's a good striker. So Mariscal had some success in the striking. Soriano took over in the grappling. And by the end of it, round 2, round 3, Mariscal was really shooting for some takedowns that were defended by Soriano, who ended up getting on top. He loses to Steve Garcia again in an LFA main event. Mariscal's been a springboard for a lot of fighters that you know, but again, he's picked up some really good wins in the past, training out of Elevation with Tatsuro Taira in this one, as well as Justin Gaethje and some other big fighters. So again, Mariscal looks amazing, and for Jack Jenkins, his last time out, it's a win over Jamal Emmers in one of the worst decisions in 2023.
It wasn't that bad. It was a close fight.
It wasn't that close of a fight. Emmers first round, Emmers third round, and that's all she wrote. But Matt, Jack Jenkins gets it done. 30-27 for Emmers. Troy Winkapaw had said 29-28 Jenkins by D'Amato and Lee. MMA decisions, 11 had scored it all. 11 scored it for Emmers. But when you look at a guy in Jack Jenkins, it's going to be a tough fight against a guy like Jamal Emmers, right? Because they're both good at the same things. Both good at leg kicks. Both good at boxing. Both good at wrestling, defensively and offensively. So it was a chess match in that fight. It was ultimately a bit of stalemate. But when you do consider it for Jenkins, he's able to go out there, out-wrestle Don Shainis the matchup before against Freddie Emiliano Linares. He takes him down. He's able to finish him. And if you look at Jenkins on the regional scene, it is the boxing with the leg kicks to break other guys' legs to get wins. So in a fight like this, it's definitely going to come down to the wrestling, the whirling dervish that is Chepe Mariscal, and kind of the more technical but sometimes reserved version of Jack Jenkins. And I'll throw a picture up there on screen. He's doing a UFC press event with Tai Tuivasa and Alexander Volkanovski. They're dressed like regular guys. Jack Jenkins wears a suit. He's just reserved. Matt, what do you think about this fight? I think it's an awesome fight.
I think it's an awesome fight too, but this is what worries me about Mariscal, especially based off his last fight. Trevor Peek's somebody who, if you beat him, you're going to look amazing. And if you lose to him, you're going to look really bad. So that's why I have a hard time placing my expectations for Chepe Mariscal in this matchup, because if we do just get the best versions of him from that matchup, then we will get the volume takedowns, we will get the crazy cardio he was able to demonstrate. But I think there's other guys in the lightweight division who could probably do that to Trevor Peek. Now, there's other fighters who would get hit by 17 standing hammer fists and just go down like a sack of potatoes. But Mariscal, I think...
I'm glad you're picking up on the sack of potatoes. Keep it going.
But Mariscal, I do think, looked like 20% better than he probably will the majority of the time in that matchup, just because of the way that Peek is going to fight with those looping shots. And I do think the fact that his shots are quite looping made it a lot easier for Mariscal to evade those than implement his own takedowns. Whereas with Jenkins, a lot of that offense is coming from that close distance, be it with the leg kicks or the boxing combinations. And when he is able to implement those two things equally, it's going to make it that much more difficult for Mariscal to at least accept his entries and decide when he is going to go for some of those takedowns. Now, I don't think Jack Jenkins is going to out-wrestle Mariscal. I do think we are going to get a very 50-50 match with the wrestling. Yes, listen, both guys are probably going to complete takedowns by the end of it, but I don't think either guy is going to have the, 11 for 17 type numbers that we will see in some matchups. Marab Devalshvili. But I do think for Mariscal, again, I want to get really excited based on that last performance against Trevor Peek, but the more I think about it, I do think there's a lot of other fighters who could probably replicate that.
And Jenkins fights in a bit of a Thai boxing way when he does throw his kicks, because he holds his hands really high, gives up the body, and you saw it against Emmers. 19 of 59 significant strikes were leg kicks. And again, he's broken legs multiple times in the past, but when I look at this fight, the one that I go back to for Chepe Mariscal, and I touched on it in the original analysis, it was the fight against Sean Soriano. Soriano had success in the leg kicks and the offensive wrestling. Sean Soriano's not a wrestler. So when I look at Mariscal, there's other fights. Like, again, he beat Pat Sabatini. He's fought such a good level of competition. And if you're new to the channel, I picked Chepe Mariscal to beat Trevor Peek, and a lot of people tee-heed and snickered around that one. Now, I know Mariscal was a slight favorite in the fight. He's an underdog in this one. Jack Jenkins is the favorite. But there's a couple of keys here. Mariscal is like a dog on a bone. He never gives up. And I know these are kind of superlatives that I'm throwing around there, but he trains at Elevation. I know he's going halfway across the world to take this fight against the hometown fighter. He's out of Victoria, so he's making the trip as well, but not nearly as long as that for Mariscal. But when I look at a fight like this, we'll see if that really high guard, the leg kicks, if Mariscal is able to switch his stances like we've seen and work in tight to the body. So again, as I mentioned, Jenkins is a pretty big favorite. We have a look at the Topology votes, see what the fans are thinking on this one. I think they gained an appreciation out of Mariscal's debut. I'm going to say over under 67.5% for Jack Jenkins.
I'll say over.
I'm going to say over. Oh, it's way over. 1,011 total votes, 86% Jenkins, 80% by decision. For the 14% that are Mariscal, 63% by decision. And again, Chepe Mariscal, if he bites down and gets mad, it could be the Joe Anderson Brito fight. Or it could be the fight that he had his last time out. So I think it's a good one. I'm going to go with a little bit more of the technique at a Jack Jenkins in the pick. The safer one as it would be, but what are you thinking here?
Jack Jenkins is just a lot tighter with his striking, especially defensively. You bring it up. The hands are quite high for the majority of his exchanges, and he does do a good job of digging to the body too with his boxing every now and then. And I do think those are the types of techniques that are at least going to keep Mariscal on the back foot and not let him lead the dance like he was able to do for large periods in that peak fight. So I think this is going to be a really fun one. Their styles do match up quite well, but I do favor Jack Jenkins in the matchup.
Both of us going with a man whose nickname is based off of a horse. Phar Jack Jenkins.
Would you be Craig's Secretariat Allen? Would that be fun?
New Brunswick's own Ron
Oh, I know.
Turkalj. Legend. And they have a statue of him on the main
I didn't
drag.
want this to be a whole thing.
Up
It was
in
a joke.
Grand Falls, Grand. So, some big time fights on this card, Matt. The next one, Black Jag taking on Woon Jung. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.